Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Canucks Conversation, brought to you by the great folks over at Zephyr Epic. You can use promo code Hockey Season, capital H, capital S, all one word, Hockey Season. That will get you $5 off your order at ZephyrEpic.com. That is ZEPHYR Epic. Check them out on all platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. No matter what it is, they've got you covered for all of your trading card needs, whether that be the Pokemon, the Yu-Gi-Oh, the hockey cards, the football cards, the baseball cards. A lot of baseball going on today, Chris, and we're going to talk a little baseball off the top here. But be sure to go check out Zephyr Epic. Free shipping on any order Canada-wide over $50. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I'm joined, as always, by the man who built the place, Chris Faber, on this beautiful Vancouver Wednesday afternoon. This is the Canucks Conversation podcast, and of course, our technical producer is Alex Allard. Chris, you're wearing a hoodie. You're not enjoying the summer weather right now?
I got the AC on again in the house, but the AC has been spotty. It's been screwing me over late at night. I've had to sleep with one leg out of the blanket. You know, that move right there to keep your body cool. I've been having to do that lately. So today it's working right now. But I will be sweaty by the end of this. Wearing a hoodie might be a little bit of a mistake, but my fingers are like borderline freezing, which I probably should see a doctor about because it happens often. But aside from that, doing good. Ready to get outside. It'll be a nice drive out to Abbotsford tonight when I head out there. Very excited for that. Save your baseball stuff for the end because I got more important stuff off the top here. Okay, everybody knows what's going on in the world, right? Everybody knows. The goddamn grocery prices are going through the roof. Right? You know this. You shop at Safeway. You're a Safeway guy. The grocery store prices are through the roof. You know, cans of soup, what are they, $2.89 now to get a Campbell's chunky can of soup, chicken noodle. You know what I'm talking about. These things. Beef, you can't find ground beef anywhere. Chicken breast, you're paying $7 a breast. Don't clip that. But the other thing, I want to bring this up because yesterday I go grocery shopping. My therapist told me to do this. She told me to just go out and enjoy some time on my own. So what do I like doing on my own? Grocery shopping. So I thought that I should go to the richest person's grocery store. I went to this place called City Market out in Kitsilano. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to buy very much. All this stuff's going to be crazy expensive where the rich people shop. I'm not living like the rich. I'm sure you've been there, Quads. You probably have a VIP card at this place. But I'm at this fancy place, City Market. The best service I've ever had in my life at a grocery store. And listen, I come from the good folks on the island. Everybody on the island knows it gave me real good Country Grocer vibes, okay? Country Grocer is the best grocery store. Shout out to them. They run the island. They got the red bags. They're beautiful. But I went out to the City Market yesterday, dropped $190 on groceries, and I got a lot. This is how the rich are staying rich. None of their groceries are going up in prices. I'm buying like a kilogram of shredded cheese for like $6. I'm buying butter for like 99 cents. I know why the rich people are staying rich, because they're shopping. Their grocery stores are dirt cheap. I've cracked the secret. So I'm going to start living like you now, and all the big rigs at Nation Network eating, yesterday I look in there and I said, gee, you know what? I could afford ahi tuna at this place. The ahi, I'm not going to eat it because I don't know anything about ahi tuna, but the City Market out there in Kitsilano, everything's dirt cheap. Now I understand all you need to do to be rich is just shop at the rich grocery stores. No more Safeway for me. I'm done with them. I'm done at the Safeway. I'm all City Market now. That's the way to go. I got a whole bunch of groceries yesterday. I had a great day. Surprised my fiance a little bit because I'm like, I'm going out doing that thing my therapist said to just, take some time to yourself and walk around, do your thing. I'm out there just to head on therapist orders. And what do I find? The secret to being rich. So no more pinching pennies for me. I'm living like you now, Quads. I'm going to City Market. I just wanted to give them a shout out. Just great customer service out there in Kitsilano.
Okay, so a few things off the top here. Yes, I shop at Safeway, but here's the real trick, Chris, and no free ads, of course, for grocery stores or what I'm about to say, the app that I use. There's an app called Flip. This is a free ad called Flip. Okay. And basically what it does, I don't know about you, I get all these coupons and all the flyers in the mail. And what I used to do is I used to look at all of them and I would like look for the best deals. And I have my Sharpie out and I circle it in the newspaper. And then I remember what it is. I write it down. I make sure I have a list going. Now there's this app called Flip where you check it out. You go and you type in what you need and it shows you where the best deal is. So you go to No Frills, you go to Superstore, you have no loyalty to your grocery store. Like, you know, in a pinch, if I need something, I go to Safeway. You always go to the one that's closest to you, right? Like we were just talking about, you know, the Safeways out here and stuff. We were talking about how nice they are, how good the Safeways. You've been to the Safeways.
Right?
They're
Good
nice
flowers.
places. They're good
I'll give
grocery
that to
stores.
Safeway. They got, you know, you need a quick bouquet of flowers for the missus. Safeway's got you, man. Like $15. That you can say about Safeway, especially yours. Yours has the whole extension because you're kind of living in one of the rich people Safeways yourself up there in the mountains. You guys have the nice Safeway, lots of flowers, nice and cheap. I get what you're saying. Well, but what does this app do? It just gives you the cheapest price on everything?
Yeah,
Like every
so
item?
it tells you where there's deals because you just brought up ground beef, which is a great example, right? Like it feels like ground beef's going up everywhere, and it is. It absolutely is. But there's usually, and this doesn't work foolproof, but there's usually one place a week, like at least one place per week that has a deal on ground beef, whether that be Save on Foods. Think of how many grocery stores there are, right? Like if you're looking for ground beef, you type in ground beef and you can find it immediately. Like it tells you where the best deal is and you go find it. And of course its location, all that sort of stuff tells you what's close to you and whatnot. This is the longest ad I think we've ever done, and they're not even paying us, so I'm not even gonna say the name again. But if anybody actually wants it, you can just message me. I'll tell you all about it more.
The only problem with your strategy there, Quads, is you got to go to like multiple stores, right?
Yeah, yep. Or
yes,
I think
and
is there
no.
a store that does price matching out there? Like
I spend my meals by it where like, hey, whatever's on sale, that's what we're eating this week. Okay, if the ground beef's a deal, that's what we're eating this week. I mean, I'm sure it's a little different for you, Alex. You got a family, you got kids and stuff. But hey, I can. Well, no, this probably works. Listen, I can have tacos 3 times a week if ground beef's the deal. I'll go that way if I have to.
I was gonna say though, like if you guys have a store out there that does the price matching, we have a store out here, Superstore. They do price matching. We just discovered this Flip app that Quads is talking about. But you just go to the one store and you pull out that app and you say, look, it's this cheap price over at that store over there. And they go, okay, price matched. And then you go, okay, how about this ground beef? It's way cheaper over here. And they go, price matched.
Well, there you go. Look at all the hacks coming out on Canucks Convo.
No, hold on a second. Alex, have you done this, though? Have you done this, or are you just aware of this?
No. We've just started doing this, and we're saving loads of money on fruit. Like, our kids are eating tons of fruit.
Good. Kids love fruit. What's the kids? What is the go-to fruit right now for the kids?
Bananas, raspberries.
Good. I tell you what, you got the kids they're living like me, living cheap bananas. That's the fruit you can do. That's the cheapest one out there. The other one, Flash Food app is great too. That's the one that the food's about to go bad in 48 hours. Boom, pick it up, cook it tonight. All right, let's get to some hockey.
Okay. We'll wrap up the grocery talk there. Let's move on here. Vancouver Canucks talk. This is the Canucks conversation. And folks, this is why we're not going to be doing 5 shows a week. Well, I just moved my laptop. 5 shows a week. This is why we're not going to be doing 5 shows a week in the off season, because our old off season episodes, Chris, they would always end up being like this. Some people like it though, but let's move on. 100 points for Elias Pettersson. That is the big story from last night's win for the Vancouver Canucks. Look, there's a few stories. We won't talk about it right now. I'll hold back. We're gonna talk draft lottery, of course. We have to. But the big story of the night: 100 points for Elias Pettersson, reunited with the Lotto line when he scored that goal. The assist, obviously, Miller to Pettersson to Besser for a tap in, and hey, it was a good piece of storytelling. I think Wyatt was the one that wrote that on Twitter. It's a good piece of storytelling, as you see the graphic there. Presented by McDonald's. I didn't even notice that. 100 points for Elias Pettersson.
$3 for that Big Mac, of course, is presented by McDonald's. Yeah, a couple assists yesterday for Pettersson. Beautiful to see him get the 100 points. I love it. We talked about it on the show yesterday. Like this had to happen. 6th player in Canucks history to have a 100-point season Awesome stuff from Elias Pettersson. We obviously remember JT Miller having 99 last year. Pettersson topped that. And I did want to note this as well, is if he doesn't pick up 2 penalty minutes in the final game of the season here, he'll be the only player to get 100 points and under 15 penalty minutes, because Alexander McGillney in 1996, 107 points, 16 penalty minutes. Pettersson, he's at 14 right now. There you go. Another little thing for Pettersson to do. I don't know how much of a interesting stat that is, but I like it. And you know what? It's still not over. Could add to that 101 that he's at right now, but it's damn impressive, man. Like we want to spend some time on today's episode. I think we've done a lot of it as the season has gone on. Just kind of, I don't even know the right, kind of praising Elias Pettersson for his season. There's been a massive step in his game. He's gotten himself into that conversation to being a superstar. He deserves some praise here. And I know he's got a lot throughout the season, but today is a special day, I think, to celebrate him hitting 100 points. Awesome moment for the Vancouver Canucks in a season that has not been filled with awesome moments from start to finish. At least we got one last night.
We just got our award ballots for the NHL Awards for voting. And I'm still, obviously, it just came out yesterday. I'm still working on my ballot and everything like that. But early returns, when I'm thinking about it, is that I'm probably going to have Elias Pettersson in 3 categories. I think he's going to be a 4th or 5th for me on the Selke. I think he's earned that. The reason I don't have him higher in a top 3 is just because he doesn't consistently play the matchup role, it feels like. So I want to at least recognize the two-way play that we've seen from him this year. So I think 4th or 5th. And again, I have to look a lot more than I already have, but 4th or 5th, I think. And you just brought it up, the penalty minutes. I think he's a sleeper pick for the Lady Byng. And I know he's gotten picks before, I not to win it per se, but I know he's gotten votes before, and I always never put him on my ballot. I only voted last year. But the reason I didn't was just kind of that snarl we saw in his game, like the reverse hits. When you say most sportsman-like player, I used to not really think of Elias Pettersson, but I think this year, for the most part, like you think of a few different moments that have happened recently, going back a year or two, but the thing with Matt Calvert, when he ripped a shot and Matt Calvert fell down, like you could see Pettersson checking on him, right? I almost think like refraining from leaning into the Mike Matheson storyline after he scored on Mike Matheson in overtime. I think that should get you a Lady Byng vote in itself.
That one play earlier in the year where he looked like he tripped the guy and then he was like, no, I told the ref not to call the penalty. I mean, listen, I know that's one moment in a game, but that literally can win you this award for the Lady Byng. Hockey's a tough sport to play. When you do have little moments like that, and you brought up a couple already, does give you a chance. I think he'll be in the conversation for it. He feels like a Lady Byng type of player, right? I don't think that's the award that every player craves to have at some point during their career. But when you play the way that Elias Pettersson plays, it feels like an award he will win at some point in his career. The other ones, I think you're feeling a little bit more proud of, right? If you're in there for the Selke, you're the best defensive forward. If you're obviously up there for the Hart, that's massive as well. That is the biggest award I think you win as a hockey player. So to me, he feels like he's going to win some Lady Byngs over his career. It's just the way he is as a person and as a player. So that'll be a lot of fun. But you're right, to have him in the conversation for a couple different awards. And by the way, I got skipped again this year on the votes for Vancouver. Lucky, again, I don't know what they're paying you, but you must be paying some back to the PHWA. They're paying your dues. But yeah, I heard it today on Donnie and Dolly. Craig Button joined them, and he said Pettersson's probably in the conversation for his Selke votes too. It's not just going to be the Vancouver market. I think you'll see a couple Hart votes maybe come out of the Vancouver market. I'm really curious to see where he picks up votes outside of the Vancouver market. Probably see some more on the West Coast than we will on the East Coast, because the 10 o'clock starts are not going to draw a lot of these East Coast writers. But man, you can't say much more about this season he's had. It's been incredible to see him step up basically every part of his game.
Don't forget that JT Miller picked up Hart votes on one person's ballot over Connor McDavid. I don't think Connor McDavid was on that person's ballot. I'm not sure about that. But I do remember that JT Miller got a 5th place vote and the person didn't have McDavid. Actually, yeah, I think that was exactly the case. The person didn't have McDavid at all. They had JT Miller last year ahead. So he's going to get Hart votes. He's going to get Hart votes. And for me personally, Chris, I'm probably going to have him 4th or 5th. Again, I don't think he's going to be in my top 3. Number 1, it's McDavid. I think anybody who doesn't vote McDavid for first place on the Hart is just kidding themselves or making it too complicated for themselves. I think there's an argument for David Pastrnak to be like well within the top 3. He's probably going to be in my top 3. And again, like I said, I haven't done all my research just yet on who I'm going to vote for. But when I fill out my ballot, we'll discuss it for sure. And yeah, you know what, you got to help me with it. I mean, it's got to be the Canucks convo ballot. I'm sure that's breaking a rule. So if anybody asks, that's not what happened as we put this public. But look, like we both talk hockey. We both have our opinions. I think we're going to agree. Like Tyler Myers definitely deserves some Norris votes.
All right. I'm not even saying this as a joke. Unplug your mic and replug it in because your mic's crapping out here. Unplug it and replug it. And not just because you said Tyler Myers deserves Norris votes. I do want to pull up something else that's really like the 5-on-5 play and the play at even strength has been incredible this season. I do want to bring this stat line up here. I think it's the top 10 players for points per 60 at even strength this season. Elias Pettersson comes in at number 4. He's been effective throughout the year. He's picking up 3.4 points per 60 minutes right now. That is 4th in the NHL, only behind David Pastrnak, Nathan MacKinnon, and Matthew Tkachuk, all 3 players who are at that point where you can make a discussion about them being a superstar. I think Tkachuk and Pettersson are probably a little bit more on the outside than it is with MacKinnon and Pastrnak, but you're looking at players here who are the top of the league at producing at even strength, which most of the game is played at even strength. So yes, you're going to see McDavid's point totals be godly because of what he does on the power play. The Oilers, you just have to give them credit. Their power play is incredible. It scores a ridiculous amount of goals. It is a leading reason why they're going to be a playoff team, and a lot of it comes from their superstars. But I really think that what the superstars are doing at 5-on-5, and listen, McDavid's 7th on this list for points per 60. He's obviously up there as well. But to see Pettersson above McDavid in a stat that's pretty much like this should be McDavid's stat to dominate in the league, right? It should be points per 60. McDavid, you'd expect him at the top. And if you include power play minutes, I'm sure he is at the top. But Elias Pettersson, above these type of players that we talk about as superstars, like consistently superstars, some of the best in the league, Pettersson's doing a lot more at 5-on-5. And you brought up the defensive things. Listen, I look at this list here in front of me that I have on the screen. Matthew Tkachuk, Nathan MacKinnon, David Pastrnak, Alex Tuch, Jason Robertson, Connor McDavid, Tage Thompson, Jeff Skinner, Jack Hughes. Do I think any of those guys are a better defender than Elias Pettersson? I don't think so. So I think you have to put Pettersson in the conversation to be a superstar from the fact that he has 100 points this season. And you look at all those guys putting up points at the top of the league. I don't think any of them are in this. I think some of them might be in the conversation. Like I think McKinnon is a very good defender. You saw that in the playoffs last year. But I think like aside from him, anybody on this top 10 list here for points, I wouldn't take them in their own zone above Pettersson. I think Pettersson's a better defender than all of them. So that's why for the Selke, it's a weird award, right? Because it's like you need to put up points to have yourself in the conversation for the Selke. The best defensive forward isn't going to win the award every single year. It's the best defensive forward of a guy who's scoring a lot. And to me, like, I think Pettersson's going to get a lot of consideration for the Selke this season.
Yeah, like it's hard not to, right? I got to think about it more. And I was just looking at my ballot last year, and like I had Elias Lindholm at 4th. Last year I have my ballot literally in front of me. Last year I went Patrice Bergeron, Anthony Cirelli, Joel Eriksson, Elias Lindholm, and Alexander Barkov. And that was similar to a lot of people's ballots. Like I feel like the Selke, there's usually not much difference. Although I saw only a few people had Elias Lindholm on their ballots, which a lot of people really liked that I had him on there. But for the Selke, I'm looking at it and you just think like, okay, well, Bergeron's your surefire winner again. Anze Kopitar had a pretty good year, I think. Obviously he keeps putting up the points for LA, and there's a lot of different considerations that you have to have. But I'm looking at it now and just thinking, yeah, maybe Pettersson probably slots in on the top 3. The reason that I have reservations, Chris, is just that like he hasn't really played that matchup role where he's going against the opposition's best every single night. Like some nights he does it and he does an exceptional job of it, but then there's nights where he goes, and doesn't really win his matchup. And obviously that's going to happen. I don't know if you can say, okay, well, he's the second best defensive forward in the National Hockey League just behind Patrice Bergeron. When that's the case, you know what I mean? Like that's the only reservation I have. And I'm not trying to knock the player, of course. He's still going to be on my ballot. He might even be in the top 3. That's just the only thing that I look at it and have a little bit of pause about.
It's interesting because like, I'm going to pull this up here because I have it on my screen. This is Pettersson's line matches. He is facing off against the top guys a lot of the time. I mean, he's obviously facing top 6 guys most of the time, as you can see on the right side of the screen. I'll use my mouse here to kind of help this for him. But you can see the top 6, that's where a majority of his time is faced off against. He's playing against the top line a lot of the time, but you're right, he isn't in a matchup role. Like, you can kind of see how his line mates are on the left side of this graphic. He's playing a ton with the top line guys in the Vancouver Canucks. That's just the way it goes. If you saw something similar to that on how he was matching up against guys, it would be, for sure, he'd be a guy who's in the conversation to win the Selke. But from what he's done so far this season, I mean, he is getting matchups against top 6. It's not like he's ever really facing bottom 6 competition. Like, aside from when line changes are going on, no other team is like, hey, yeah, let's try our 4th line against the Pettersson line tonight. Like, he requires you to put some of your top players up against him. And you can see, like, the top pairings are going up against him the most so far this season. Lots of positive things here for him to really get in that Selke conversation, like, seriously in the next couple of years, right? Like, I don't think this year, you mentioned, like, Bergeron's going to win. You're going to have some other names in there as well. Kopitar will probably announce. I mean, Barkov seems to get votes all the time there. I just think that Pettersson is going to be the next wave of guys who's there every single season. It feels like if he continues to build on his defensive game, could end up winning it one day too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the same thing with Quinn Hughes, who we've discussed with the Norris Trophy before. Look, once Erik Karlsson passed the 100-point mark, I don't think there's any debate. Like, he's the surefire Norris winner. And I think if we keep discussing it, we're just going to, like I said, overcomplicate it and make it not a conversation that's even worth having. Erik Karlsson's the Norris Trophy winner. Like, he has to be at this point. When you put up over 100 points as a defenseman, it doesn't happen, right? Like, it doesn't happen. And you've got to have it. Like, you've got to have it if you're Erik Karlsson. And look, it's usually hard for guys who don't make the playoffs to win that award, but I think if there's a time to give it to him, this is the year. Also, why is the camera still on Chris?
I don't know. Alex
Did we lose Alex?
Now he's lost it. He's lost
camera 3.
Yeah, switch camera 3, Alex.
There we go.
Yeah, I did want to. Well, I mean, we'll continue to talk about Pettersson a lot, but it was nice to spend a little time and dive into some of him in the awards. I do want to play this clip from last night. The goal that Andrei Kuzmenko scored off the pass from Akito Hirose. You know, this is one we have to show on the show, because this pass from Akito Hirose, I know there's some people out there that I feel like they're not like in cement being like, he's like a Quinn Hughes light, but there's whispers of it, right? People like, they like the calmness. They like what he's doing with the puck. They like him here on the second power play unit. This stretch pass he made directly onto the blade of Andrei Kuzmenko, who rips a wrist shot past Dostal. And I think you see this thing from Hirose, and it's like, man, every game he's doing something that gets you pretty excited. And it's not like he's blowing me away with a lot of the play. Like, you look at a lot of his possession numbers and things like that, they're not that great at 5-on-5, especially on a team who's playing some pretty weak opponents over the last little bit. So I'm not in the camp yet of like, Hirose is going to be Filip Hronek's partner to start next season. I also am not even really at the point of being like, Hirose is going to be in the top 6 of the Vancouver Canucks next season. But I am at the point to say that, like, Akito Hirose is at least now in the conversation for being a guy who starts on the opening night lineup. Like, he is in the conversation. I think he has to be. He's 24 years old. He needs a contract going into next season. He's done enough this year to at least be in the mix now with guys who he's played better than at the end of this year. And those are names like Jack Rathbone. I think he's played better than him. Christian Wolanin, because he's injured. That's the one that's like, I still think Wolanin's probably ahead of Hirose on the depth chart moving forward. I also think they're going to sign a guy to play on the left side this season. But man, if Hirose is like this from some NHL games and he has a big offseason, where I've heard this from a lot of players, there's a huge difference to your offseason after getting a taste of pro. Like, there's a very different way that you approach your summer workouts, gaining weight, whatever it is, putting on muscle, getting quicker, being with a skating coach, heck, being in Vancouver to work with the coach or the development staff. All of those things are going to come into play now with Hirose, who needs to have a massive offseason to get to that point, and it's possible. That's the cool thing. That's the cool thing about Hirose in this whole situation. It's possible that he can win himself a spot on the NHL roster. And I'll tell you what, when that carrot's right in front of you, if you can keep that carrot in your eyesight throughout the offseason, throughout the summer, you come into camp and you are locked in, and you were locked in for the last 6 months when you had time off, you've set yourself up in a pretty good spot to get NHL games. So I'm curious to see. I mean, this pass was incredible. Remember back in the day, if Olli Juolevi did this in the AHL, 6 articles on Canucks Army about it. But I didn't see one article about this breakout pass here from Hirose, because it just feels like this is something he's kind of doing. Like, he's not making these perfect 2-line breakaway passes every game, but he's making a play like similar value to the team winning the game. Like, he's making a good defensive play, or he's on a penalty kill. He's getting a good clear. He's making good passes. He's, saving Tyler Myers' ass. He's doing so much right now in these games where you have to at least put him in the conversation. I wouldn't bet on him being on the opening night roster, but depending on the odds, I might take a swing on it. I'm pretty confident he's in the conversation.
I think what it comes down to, you showed the stretch pass, obviously, but his poise with the puck, right? Like in his own end, where you're seeing him just turn away from danger, which to this market is so foreign. Like we don't usually see defensemen doing that, not named Quinn Hughes, just turning away from danger, not trying to force anything, just waiting for the play to come to him. And if it's coming at him too fast, just turn away. Like, he's using his skating and to his advantage. He's not the biggest guy, but he's defending well. There's nothing, like you just said, there's nothing that he's done that makes you think, yeah, he probably can't challenge for a spot next year. Like, he's at least in the conversation. Another guy I want to get your opinion on, Chris, Cole McWard. I think it was Brian Choi in the chat brought it up in the YouTube live chat. Cole McWard continuing to impress as well. This is what Brian said. I think there needs to be more conversation about Cole McWard. Lots to be fleshed out, but overall, he has shown some great potential. Hard to disagree with Brian there.
No, Brian's got a couple good comments in here. With McWard, yeah, the thing that I like is the same thing that I saw when he played in college, was like really confident in getting the puck on net. And he might not have the best shot, but it gets on net all the time. And I tell you what, from a guy with a little bit of size and some oomph behind his shot, like I do think that there's something there that could be worked on. I think you need to work on the rest of his game too. Like, there are certain times where I've seen him make some pretty glaring mistakes, and that's compared to like Hirose, who I really haven't seen make a colossal error more than I've seen him make one or two in his games. That's pretty good. Cole McWard seems to make one or two pretty big mistakes in his game so far. And listen, like, this is a guy who's breaking into the NHL and getting his first few games. This is not a knock in any direction. I got this from Leafs fans the other day, because I wrote, geez, that was a really bad 30 seconds for Matthew Nyes. And it was. He had two horrendous turnovers where he was trying to make Kuzmenko-like passes, or early season Miller passes. Like, and I just wrote, like, it's just 30 seconds of bad play. That's going to happen to these guys making this huge jump up to the NHL. McWard's going to take some time in the AHL. I'm going to enjoy following him next year. I think he's going to bring a lot to that group. There's going to be a lot of exciting young players out there in Abbotsford. It'll be crazy. I saw people talking about this earlier in the chat. You could have like a right side, like a 4-depth right side in Abbotsford. This is a possibility. A lot of things need to fall into place here. But it could be like Philip Johansson as your top pairing right shot guy. Then Jet Wu following that up. David Reinbacher behind him. And Cole McWard is like an extra guy, or maybe Jet Wu's playing the left side like he's been doing a lot of this season. Like, that's exciting, man. That's really exciting things to have down on your farm team. And a lot needs to fall into place here. They obviously need to try and draft Reinbacher, get a couple other things down the road. By the way, Reinbacher, I think I mentioned on yesterday's show, he's going to join us here pretty quick. His season's all wrapped up, so I'm excited for that chat with him. And maybe a couple more Canucks prospects in the mix as well. Put in the request today, so we'll see what happens with that. And I got some more stuff about prospects later in the show. So that's McWard's something. He's got a big body, right shot guy, can get the puck on net, build the rest of his game, develop the rest of his game. That's where you're at with him right now. So I think this NHL taste is good, but I don't think he's a guy who's in the conversation next year for NHL games off the start of the year. Depending what he does in the offseason, depending how he starts in the AHL, it'll be exciting to watch. He's a guy who's like, he's going to be at, development camp probably, because he's still only going to be like 22 at the time. He's probably going to be at Young Stars in Penticton with NHL experience. That's huge for that tournament. So a lot of exciting things. Good play there with McWard. I like that.
Okay, let's go. Spotlight on PDG. Cousin Phil, friend of the show, Phil Di Giuseppe. He is the subject of today's player spotlight, which we don't yet have a sponsor for. So Phil Di Giuseppe, the subject of our player spotlight. Alex, do we have an animation here? I know Chris works hard on these. I want to let us see it before I just start talking here about PDG.
Yes, somebody works really hard on these. I mean, whoever does it probably deserves a raise. But look at this. Oh, come on, you kidding me? Here's the interest. Phil Di Giuseppe, we're going to dive into it here. He's only played 29 games this year. I was a little surprised to see that number right off the top.
Yeah, I guess. Like, I mean, we went from wondering when this guy's going to get called up, right? And I feel like that was the conversation around him for the past couple of years is when is this guy going to get called up to the NHL? And now he's here. And I think really under Rick Tocchet, he's really, really flourished. Look, he was fine under Bruce Boudreau. He was a serviceable fourth line guy, but we're seeing him get these top 6 minutes, and it's really like he's not the long-term fit in the top 6, but I think this is also a way of Rick Tocchet just saying to management, hey, I need players like this that I can win with. Like, obviously you want someone with a little more skill and a little more finishing ability than PDG. That's fine. But you need that north-south player if you're Rick Tocchet. He wants his top line playing with those guys. And look, we saw it last night. We've seen it down the stretch run of the season here. Look, Phil's impressed. I think he's someone that this organization was smart to keep around. He got the specialty from Alvin with the 2-year, 2-way. Look, it's someone that Rick Tocchet really likes, obviously, and you would much rather he be a depth call-up option, not necessarily someone that you start the season in the top 6 where he is right now, but he's played very well, and he definitely earned that contract.
Yeah, most definitely, right? And that contract's 2 years, $775,000 AAV. You mentioned the extra money in the minors for his minor salary. It's good. I mean, here's the thing. The numbers that pop off to me is like, oh, he's only been in 29 games. It feels like he's been in more. And I think that's a good thing because these type of players, some of them, like you'll look at the Canucks at the end of the season and be like, gosh, that guy played 23 games. Like, oh man, that guy was in 28 games. Like I didn't even notice him. With Phil Di Giuseppe, like you have noticed him quite a bit for being in 29 games. And here's the thing, under Tocchet, so his last 20 games, Phil Di Giuseppe's last 20 games with the Vancouver Canucks, he's averaged 15 minutes and 23 seconds of ice time. Like that's more than a fourth liner. And that's where I think he's going to end up being next season. I think he starts in the NHL. I think he's a Rick Tocchet guy. I think he's a modern age fourth line player. I think he can contribute on the penalty kill. He's kind of a depth spot for that right now, maybe like the 5th or 6th forward that Tocchet seems to be putting out there. He's also a guy who could chip in on the power play. We've seen him on the first unit in the past 2 weeks here. That's not where he's going to be next season. He's also not going to be in the top 6 next season when you have Mikheyev come back, you have Podkolzin back, you have Höglander coming up. Like all those guys should be playing higher up in the lineup than Phil Di Giuseppe. But one of the things you can take away from these last few games is like, you can suffice with him there. You can deal with him in the top 6 if you have to. And I think that's a fine feeling to have. There's not a lot of players that you feel like that on the Vancouver Canucks where you're like, if they have to, it's fine in the top 6. Like they have some wingers, and it's interesting to have Phil Di Giuseppe be in the conversation there. Like they have guys who like Nils Höglander, you could be like, okay, he could play in the top 6 if you have to. Podkolzin, you're like, if you have to, play in the top 6. Di Giuseppe is in that conversation from what he's done over the last little bit, and he's obviously a Rick Tocchet guy, so he's going to get these opportunities. And I think having him for the next 2 years on that league minimum contract, great to have that kind of depth here in the organization. Have him on the NHL team. He's also a guy who, yeah, you're right. Like you could send him down to the minors if you need to. His money's completely buried. It's a 2-way deal. Nobody's probably going to pick him up because he has a huge contract in the minors. And like, that's something that I've talked about. I talked about on yesterday's show. Like you got to give the ownership credit there for willing to sign off to pay a guy to, $500,000 to play in the minors? That's a lot of money to play in the minors, man. So you have to give credit to the ownership and management there to being on the same page and willing to pay for that to kind of make him as like a waiver blocker. Because people that are going to take him, well, they're probably going to want him for the NHL, but just other teams that are looking for him to pick him up, they're going to know like there's a big price tag to pay for him from an ownership, from the actual organization if you send him to the minors. So I think the Canucks, you got to give him props for that. And I like the way they've worked this guy in the lineup. We've been saying it for years to give him a shot at the NHL, especially as a penalty killer. So we'll have to see what happens. I think he brings a little bit of skill to a fourth line role that you like. Like he's got good fourth line skill if that's the role that he's put in. And that's where I think he'll start next season.
Yeah, absolutely. If he makes the team, that's exactly where he'll start. And you'd like to see, because let's be honest here, I think it was 2 training camps in a row that he kind of impressed. And the conversation was, wow, Phil Di Giuseppe's probably going to earn a spot on this team. And then he just didn't. And look, we talk about the Canucks lacking an identity. If you come in and play the way Phil Di Giuseppe did in those training camps under Rick Tocchet, you are going to make the team. And I'm not just saying that because Phil is a player that Rick Tocchet obviously really, really likes. you're going to be rewarded if you play that style of game. And look, that's what Phil brings. You like to see, obviously, the Canucks maybe have some better options in their top six, obviously, but as a depth option, you have to, like you said, credit to the organization for bucking up for a guy who's going to be, that first call up from Abbotsford to play on the wings. It's not cheap. It's not cheap to keep good players. It's not cheap to have a good farm system and have a good farm team. The organization's made that investment, and it's paying off. It's paying off for them. So, that's all we have on Phil Di Giuseppe.
Right. I want to get to one question here from Sterling Wilson. Says, is Pods the ideal talk player in the top six? That's what you really hope, right? Like, you really hope that this playoff run in the AHL for Vasily Podkolzin gives him a little bit more confidence, because I think he gained a little bit from his last run in the AHL, but I feel like it didn't mean as much. Now that he's been down on the farm this season and is going to experience playoff hockey, I hope that gives him a nice little boost going into the off season here, and then he can figure things out, shoot the puck a little bit more, feel a little bit more confident in his skill. But the thing with Podkolzin that you have to like is, like, at least he's one of the guys that when he is playing in the top six, playing with the good players, whether it be JT Miller or Elias Pettersson, as a winger, Podkolzin's one of the ones on the Vancouver Canucks who will drive the net very hard. He might not finish every time, but he's going to drive the net really hard. And I think you can't say that about every winger that's potentially in the top six of the Vancouver Canucks this year. At least you have that with Podkolzin. So with that being said, I think he's the talk-it type of guy. Like, when Podkolzin gets on his game and is playing his best, Rick Tocchet's really going to like him. So we just hope that Podkolzin continues to build. It's obviously been a little bit of a slump here in his sophomore year, but hey, he's still so young. We got to see him build. Let's get to the first round pick conversation. Just a little bit, not a ton here. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this. And I do want to pull this up because we do have some new, I've talked about it. All the sites are putting out their new rankings, right? Lots of new rankings for the draft prospects. And we have elite prospects, the great folks over there. No, not quite, Alex. The great folks over there at Elite Prospects, they have their consolidated. Is that how you say it? Is that the word? Do you put it all together? Consolidated?
Yep.
Sounds right. Their rankings from this coming up for the draft here. And there's a lot of, like, David Reinbacher is the interesting one. He's one who gets talked about a lot. This is a average of all the rankings throughout some of the major scouting sites. Reinbacher is coming in at 19 on these major scouting sites. Axel Sandin Pellikka is the interesting right shot guy as well. He's coming in at 13. Michkov down to 3. Leo Carlson slid to 4. Then there's some interesting names that we've seen where the Canucks are kind of sitting at right now, and we'll use this to transition into the draft lottery odds as well. But I just wonder, man, if the Canucks end up sitting somewhere in the 9, 10, 11 range, there's not a lot of names there that really blow you away or get me that excited as much as, like, David Reinbacher does. So we'll have to see. And, like, where the Canucks end up going here, like, I don't know. I don't get that excited for Brandon Yeager, Oliver Moore, Colby Barlow. Like, Reinbacher's the guy there. And if he's gone and the Canucks are there at 10, I wonder what they end up doing with this pick, man. Because I'm sure that they will, when you go into the draft, you don't know who's going to be there at 10. So you have to have conversations about trading the pick and who can give you the biggest value. It will be very interesting to see with the Canucks in win now mode what they do with this first round pick. I'm not 100% confident they're going to end up using it. I think they might end up trading it. It's very possible for sure. I wouldn't say it's the likely outcome. I think it's likely that they do end up making the pick, but I can't get excited yet about a new first round pick coming to the prospect pipeline, because this team wants to win next season, and winning next season might not come from a prospect. It won't come next year in a prospect that you pick at 10. He won't be helping the NHL team next year. But that first round pick, trading it for a player, you can absolutely get a guy who's going to help your team. And that's where it'll be interesting to see what this management group decides to do with their future.
I would advise everybody to think about, trading away the 9th overall pick, which was used to get Dylan Guenther. Like, Dylan Guenther would help this team right now, right? And that trade doesn't feel like it was all that long ago. And also, there's some OEL discourse in the chat here, in the YouTube live chat. But pull up the draft lottery odds, Alex. This is kind of the other story of the night. Also, no disrespect, we got to also mention 200th goal of JT Miller's career last night, and he's really stepped up in the second half of the season. Okay, draft lottery odds. Back to our dread, Chris. The Washington Capitals and the Detroit Red Wings at the time of yesterday's recording were behind the Vancouver Canucks. Canucks obviously beat Anaheim and now sit in that 10th spot. So Do you want to run the simulator? Are we going to run the simulator here and see what we get?
Oh, Alex has it. Yeah,
Fire it up.
I didn't
Fire it
go
up,
there.
Alex.
See what happens.
And as we do this, I just want to say, obviously, the Canucks now with a 3.5% chance at Connor Bedard. It was 6% yesterday, and wouldn't you know it, the team with 6%, the Washington Capitals, in our simulator here, jump up 6 spots to the second overall pick. And look, if there's one thing the Washington Capitals need, it's generational talent, talented sniper, right? Like that's what that team really, really needs. And look, like you see the Detroit Red Wings there. That was a team that sold to the Canucks at the deadline because they said, you know what, we have all these prospects, we have all these young players, but you know what, we need more and more. We need to keep loading up and we need to keep building. They're now ahead of the Canucks in the lottery odds. And hey, I'm not going to tell people what to think, what to feel, but you got to think, if you're a Canucks fan, that hurts a little bit to see that, right? To see that, the Detroit Red Wings and the Washington Capitals, who it feels like just a few years ago won the Stanley Cup, are now, looking toward the future, and they're going to be in that conversation to get a generational talent at the top of this draft. But hey, fingers crossed with the 3.5% chance that the Canucks have now, and now you just hope that they don't drop to 11th, which is the lowest they could go, and have a 3% chance at drafting Connor Bedard.
Yeah, let's get it up there one more time, Alex. The not the lottery, the photo that we had, or just reset this if you want, just because I want to show like where the Canucks are actually at with the simulator. You brought it up there at 3.5%. They still have a chance. Okay, they have a chance to get back to 6%. And I said this a couple weeks ago on the show. I would be very happy if they had a 6% chance of winning Connor Bedard. That means they have a 6% chance of moving up to 1. That means they have a 6% chance of moving up to 2. Right now, you're looking at 3.5%. Man, it's a big drop. Listen, the balls are going to fall where they fall. The Canucks might end up winning. They probably won't. They probably won't end up moving up. They'll probably end up actually moving down. There's better odds of that happening. It would have been a little bit more exciting to roll into it with 6% than 3.5. So we'll see what happens. Their final game against Arizona, Philadelphia, that you can't catch them. Washington and Detroit, if they win their final game of the season, you could jump up a little bit. I just think, it's a big jump from 10 to 9, right? Like from 3.5% to 5%, that's a big jump. So you kind of hope that the Canucks lose this last game. You hope that either Washington or Detroit, even if one of them win, they're going to jump the Vancouver Canucks. So I don't know. I got this, like, you get this reaction from people on Twitter a lot of time when you talk about the draft lottery odds, like, oh, it doesn't matter. And it's like, yeah, probably not. But like, hey, I'd rather have 5% than 3.5%. Like, is that a wrong thing to ask? Like, is that a wrong thing to root for? More chance of landing no one in our chat. Generational talent here from Vancouver? Like, obviously, I will take 0.1%. I'd take 0.1%. I'd give up energy drinks for 2 weeks to get the 0.1%. I don't care. Like, yeah, it's just, you just want the best chance to get a chance at, like, I don't know. I always think this about, like, imagine if the Canucks get Connor Bedard. How amazing it's going to be. It would be, I know, I try not to think. Sometimes my mind wanders and I get to the point I'm like, hey, it's possible. It is possible. It'd be incredible for this franchise, the fan base, everything. It'd be such positivity moving forward if it were to happen. I mean, just come on, okay. Gary, weight the balls a little bit.
Okay, now I don't want to get into this, but the people out there, and there's no one in our chat, thankfully, that are like, oh, well, whatever, they weren't going to get him anyway, or whatever the people are saying. There's no one in our chat saying that. But the people on Twitter, you've seen a lot of it. Oh, they're not going to get him anyway. Who cares? The Canucks went on a skid to end the 2017 season, okay? And they fell in the lottery. They didn't win the prize possession, which in that year was Nico Hischier. But then at 5th overall, they still drafted Elias Pettersson. We've brought this up before. The people being like, the draft lottery doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Like, team culture, blah, 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 whatever. Down the stretch, all that sort of stuff. Who cares about their draft lottery position? They say this while wearing an Elias Pettersson or Quinn Hughes jersey. And it's like, look at what this has done for you. Yes, they have slipped down in the draft lottery, but you want the highest positioning possible. That is what you want. And look, you're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be upset that last night the Canucks, because Thatcher Demko played so extremely well, they get the win against the Anaheim Ducks and now move up to that 10th spot rather than 8th, then you're allowed to be upset about that. But don't give me this, oh, who cares? They weren't going to get him anyways. Even if they weren't, which they would have had a better chance, obviously, even if they weren't, they still would have a better player available to them the higher in the draft. That's just how it works. That's how the draft works. Anyways, I'm not going to keep going on this. Wrap it up.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's also just like, like you said, like it's a higher chance, but it's not like, the Canucks aren't going to just lose. So, I mean, they're playing a lot of college guys, I guess. They're playing Thatcher Demko a lot too. So I don't know. I think there's a balance in both. Well, let's get to odds and ends. We spent enough time on the draft lottery and reverse standings, all that good stuff. Jonathan Lacari Mackey, be talking to him soon. They've advanced to the Allsvenskan finals. The finals, they won today in game 6 of their series. They're off to the finals. That gets going on Sunday. So good stuff. Lacari Mackey he's playing a much more engaged game. I watched the whole game today. That's why I was a little late getting in here. I couldn't brief you guys on the show, but watched the whole game today. Played a really engaged game. A lot better on the forecheck, throwing the body even a little bit, playing a little bit of physicality. He picked up an assist on Djurgården's second goal. So he's now got 3 goals and 4 assists through 8 playoff games. And like I said, Allsvenskan finals get going on Sunday. So that's exciting there for him to get that opportunity to, not just play in the playoffs, but play in the damn finals. That means something. His organization, they really want to get back into the SHL. And they're going to be playing for it in the Allsvenskan finals starting on Sunday. So good stuff there. Mention it. Did you watch Luke Hughes yesterday?
No, I didn't watch Luke Hughes yesterday, but I did watch Rick Dollywall's Twitter account. And people in the chat are asking, which is why I flashed this up on the screen here. Read it, Chris. You know these players better than I do. I don't even know what I'm looking at here.
Dollywall, I heard him on Donnie Dolly today say they're sniffing around a Quinnipiac player. There's a few options there. The ones that I liked, right shot defenseman Zach Metza, and then the winger Colin Graff. Rick Dollywall said oh, that's tough. Hopefully it's just about a computer. But Rick Dollywall said it's not Graff. I had a feeling. That was a scary text message. We don't have to clip that.
No, it's not even out of character. Like, I didn't even hesitate. I knew right away that's a computer question from my mom who texted it. I had it flashed up on the screen for those on the podcast. And my mom said, "Help! !" Are you free to chat? So yes, I know that this is a computer question, so I'll get to that after the show.
Oh, great! That's awesome. That's that's gonna get clipped. Tell Clip Master Aaron, who's getting made fun of from other podcasts, by the way, for his Clip Master name. I think Metz is an interesting one. Small right shot defenseman. A lot of people liked him last year. He went back. He was the captain this year. He seems like a leader. He's already come out and I saw him actually quote tweet someone. I didn't actually see the tweet, but he was giving it to someone for talking something about him going pro. So I didn't see the tweet before, but I saw him clapping back about it. So that'd be interesting. I like the right shot defenseman. Metza kind of feels like an AHL contract. Like, I don't know if he's going to get an NHL deal. I think he's a little bit of a lower end prospect than a Nick Blankenberg's probably a good example. A guy who got signed last year, played with the Blue Jackets, still playing with the Blue Jackets this year. But Metz is a leader, man. I think he's a real character guy. He's a great ATO if you can get him out to Abbotsford. I would love for it to be him. And I don't know, maybe Dollywall knows how he's tweeting, right? He said it's not Graff. The other name that I had in my tweet, Zach Metza. Put 1 and 1 together. There you go. All right. Not reading that, Levi. Keep rolling here. Like I said, I watched Luke Hughes last night. He played with Dougie Hamilton a lot of the night last night. He only played 11 minutes, but nice little debut for him. He made some mistakes as well. Listen, these young guys make some mistakes, but Luke Hughes, good for him making that debut. I'm sure Quinn was excited to watch his bros play together down in Jersey. All right. I got nothing else here. We wrapped it up, odds and ends here. I'm done. Good show.
Great show. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Harmon will be in on Friday. But in the meantime, go ahead.
I'm not. Oh, you're about to do your catchphrase that I like. In the meantime, in the lean time, or whatever you say. I'll be out in Abbotsford tonight. We'll have a report tomorrow. I'll have some audio from out there in Abbotsford. All that good stuff. We'll see who's out there, who's playing. Apparently, Niels Höglander's back in the lineup, so that's good news. He was just sick over the weekend. They're playing Ontario, I think, tonight. I don't know. I'll double check. Actually, I might as well do it right now because I think that Ontario is the way that they're matching up into the playoffs right now. So that could be pretty exciting to see this kind of 3-game series. No, sorry, Calgary Wranglers tonight on Canucks Autism Network Awareness Night acceptance night out in Abbotsford. So that's great. And a great story out there from Jack Rathbone over on the Abbotsford Canucks website. Check that out if you want. And 3 more games against the Calgary Wranglers. Dustin Wolf is not there anymore. He's coming up to Calgary Flames to play an NHL game. So good for him. Canucks should have the advantage in goal. Hoping for a good one out there in Abbotsford tonight because it's going to take me 2.5 hours to drive out there. Just give me a game. Give me a game where the players aren't all pissed off at the end of it. I just want a couple happy players at the end of the game. Have some good chats. Have some laughs. Give me a clip to play on tomorrow's show. Just win the game 6-1, please. Just have a good game. Because every time I go out to Abbotsford, the last 4 or 5 times, they get their asses kicked. And the players must just got screamed at by Jeremy Colleton dealing with them after the game because none of them want to have talk or joke about anything. So hoping for a big win for Abbotsford tonight. Everybody put it in, put it in the air a little bit, folks. Get me some good vibes going out there at Abbotsford tonight. I want to make this drive worth it out there to farm country.
All right. Yes, we'll talk Abbotsford tomorrow. Hopefully they'll be in a good mood for you. We got to get Colleton back on the show and tell him not to yell at the players when you're out there. Because come on, we need these players in a good mood when you need to go get quotes from them.
Yeah, we'll see. I see Darren Francis in there as well in the chat. Darren's in here often. Great photographer, getting tons of awesome shots from Abbotsford. Darren, take me up to the I want to go on the catwalk. I see him up there on the catwalk all the time, taking photos, posting down on the goalies there. I'm going up to the catwalk pretty soon here. Maybe not tonight. I'm too scared. But one day I'll go up there. All right, wrap it up. Abbotsford tonight. Looking forward to. Oh, takeoff.
There's Abbotsford.
Eagles. Look at that. Abbotsford's looking gorgeous out there. This isn't actually Abbotsford, is it?
No, it's not Abbotsford.
They got Eagles out there. What are you talking about?
They do. That's not Abbotsford, though. Look at the landmarks.
That's could be Fraser River. No?
It's not, though. It's not.
Okay. You know the Eagle capital of the world. I don't know if this is true, but I heard Squamish. You go out there. I remember going out there fishing one time when I was young. When I was young in my preteen age, went out there on a fishing trip, and we were in this one spot. Probably about 40, 50 eagles on all the trees around us. It was glorious out there in Squamish. Good folks out there.
That's
Squampton,
fantastic.
they used to call it when I was a kid. Welcome to Squampton.
Okay. We're gonna wrap it up there. For my co-host Chris Faber and our technical producer Alex Allard, my name is Dave Quadrelli. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Canucks Conversation.
In the meantime, in between time, Quads, figure it out. Tank it up.
You screwed up my catchphrase. I couldn't use it. It wasn't natural.
Yeah, we're cutting it.
Thanks for listening to Canucks Conversation. Hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.
How about keep it to a thank you, Jim?